And I want to take a look at Matthew chapter 12, starting in verse 39. It says, "But he answered and said to them," this is Jesus speaking to the Pharisees, when they asked for a sign. They said, "Give us a sign that you are who you say you are." And Jesus answered, "An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh will rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah. And indeed, a greater than Jonah is here. The queen of the south will rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon. And indeed, a greater than Solomon is here." So Jesus' point here is pretty straightforward. He's just saying that the Ninevites in Jonah's day made Jonah the most successful evangelist of all time, possibly, in that an entire city, hundreds of thousands of Ninevites repented and changed the course of their history. And they're going to be, when they're resurrected, they were going to testify against the scribes and Pharisees for rejecting Christ, the one who is greater than Jonah. And in the similar way, the queen of the south, the queen of Sheba, traveled all the way to Israel to see the splendor and glory of Solomon's kingdom, the golden age of Israel. That was fairly brief, but was a beautiful time for the nation of Israel. And Jesus is also comparing himself to Solomon in this, in that he's saying, man, the queen of the south is going to condemn you for rejecting me because she traveled to see Solomon, and here I am. I'm greater. The inferences, Jesus is saying, I am greater than Solomon. A greater than Solomon. Now that's interesting because Solomon, Jonah is not too spectacular of a guy. At least the account that we have of him in Scripture, he is running from the commands of the Lord, really being disobedient, and God has to put him in the belly of a fish to change his mind. And even then, he's begrudgingly going to Nineveh and preaches the gospel. So it wasn't in his might or strength that there was revival by any means, as he was complaining while he was doing it. But Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, that's a little bit different. And Solomon, he although was really inherited the blessings from David's work as king. David was unable to be the king of peace because he had blood on his hands, and so he prepared everything for the temple to be built. That was David's heart, that there would be a temple, a beautiful temple built for the Lord. And God allowed his son to do that work that was on David's heart. And really, despite Solomon's personal character throughout his life, is really kind of receiving the blessing from his father, just was an outstanding ruler of peace. And that embodiment of peace is what Jesus is talking about, and how he is going to be greater in his peace and his ruling and the prosperity when he takes his throne. And so in a day where there is wars and rumor of wars, be reminded that we have a king of peace, the Prince of Peace. In Isaiah 32, verses 18 and 19, it says, "Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and his name will be called." Now remember, this is speaking of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, and the government has not been on his shoulders yet. He has not been a political leader as of yet. But this prophecy is going to be fulfilled, as Isaiah penned it here, by the Spirit of God, and his name will be called. Here's the description of this king: Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. So, when we have a lack of peace, be reminded, he's a Prince of Peace. When we have a lack of wisdom, we have a counselor. We have a counselor with a capital C, Messiah, Jesus Christ, ruling and reigning, King of Kings, wonderful counselor, mighty God, mighty in power. And how is he going to use that power? He's going to use it to bring peace and prosperity and blessing on those in the kingdom. So be encouraged. That day is coming, even when we look around and we say, what is going on in this world? How crazy are things getting? Trust in him. Trust in him. He is going to do it. He's going to come through, just as he said. Might not be in our timing, and it might not be the way that we even expect, but he is going to do just as he said, to the nth degree, fulfilling everything that is said of him as Messiah, just as he always has, he always will. So God bless you this morning. And until next time on Morning Manna.